Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me? If not, say so. Please say so now. Please say so now. Please say so now. All right, just getting things set up. All right, all right, all right. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah. Paul Greene-Dennis here. This is the second time streaming on Rumble. Trying something a little different here, streaming on Rumble. Yeah. And basically, like title says here, to ask me anything while I work on some long form political narration. What it is, and it's basically a restart of what I did because I had to do it on a new computer. So I'm restarting where I originally started at before with this narration before things got a little busy. But yeah. And this is a ask me anything. Keep it respectful. So I asked for keep it respectful. Um, yeah, and actually just bang, get this out of the way. And actually, uh, continue. Uh-huh. All right, got that. Uh-huh. There we There we go. Actually, scratch that. Scratch that. That's better. That's better. That's better. Much better. All right. So, in case you don't know, the program that I am using is a Reaper for this. So, hopefully, enjoy. Well, I actually stumbled through a little bit while I work on this. And basically, yeah, let's have some fun. And if you are in the chat, say hello, ask me anything. Again, do keep it respectful. Do keep it respectful. And here we go. Actually, well, that's not what I wanted to do. Luigi Mangione, the new abstract painter. There is an odd parallel between what is written about effective counterinsurgency and what was discovered about the individual human mind. During the same period, the Cold War, the very same intelligence agencies in the United States and Britain that were overseeing counterinsurgency operations were also trying to discover the secrets of mind control. The term brainwashing was coined by Edward Hunter, writing for the Miami News in 1950. John D. Marks's groundbreaking book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, describes the origins of the term that developed into a U.S. and British intelligence obsession. He, Edward Hunter, made up his coined word from the Chinese Xinao to cleanse the mind, which had no political meaning in Chinese. Award-winning journalist Stephen Kinzer's book, The Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control, describes the historical context. Americans should have been able to celebrate the release of 7,200 soldiers from communist prisons after an armistice ended the fighting in Korea of July of 1953. Instead, they recoiled in shock. Many prisoners, it turned out, had written statements opposing Many prisoners, it turned out, had written statements opposing the United States or praising communism. Some had confessed to committing crimes. 21 chose to stay behind in North Korea or China. The Pentagon announced they would be considered deserters and executed if found. As Marx notes in his book, by the end of the Korean War, 70% of the 7,190 U.S. prisoners held in China had either made confessions or signed petitions calling for an end to the American war in Asia. 15% had collaborated fully with the Chinese, and only 5% had steadfastly resisted. Worse, an alarming number of the prisoners stuck by the confessions after returning to the United States. They did not, as was They did not, as was accepted. They did not, as was They did not, as was accepted, recant when they stepped on U.S. soil. Puzzled and dismayed by the wholesale collapse of morale among POWs, American opinion leaders settled on Edwards' explanation. The Chinese had somehow brainwashed our boys. The arrogance with which American media observed the POW scandal can't be overlooked. The reality is that the United States did indeed commit massive war crimes against the Korean people. The work of Bruce Cummings and other Korea scholars very well confirms that. The notion that the Korean people did not have the right to have a unified government in which the Korean Workers' Party participated alongside other parties hardly seems to morally justify the millions of deaths on the peninsula. The United States famously threatened to drop atomic bombs on China at one point during the war, and every building above 1 story tall in the northern half of Korea was destroyed. The idea that captured soldiers, seeing this from another angle, might, after being taken prisoner, apologize and denounce the war they had been sent to fight isn't hard to imagine without a huge dose of anti-communist assumptions. However, in the atmosphere of McCarthyism, the notion that some of the GIs may have been horrified by what they were ordered to do could not be entertained. Neither could the notion that any of the arguments the Chinese or Korean captors were logically convincing. Kinzer noted the media response and the atmosphere that led to decades of CIA research. Newsweek described them, the American POWs, as shifty-eyed and groveling, and said they had betrayed their country in exchange for better treatment because they had fallen in love with Asian women or because of the appeal of homosexualism. Several commentators warned they represented the weakening of American masculinity and Several commentators warned they represented the weakening of American masculinity and the replacement by a generation of pampered kids and mama's boys. Beyond the nation's spiritual decline and the feminization of its men, another theory emerged: brainwashing. Regardless, the result was CIA Project Bluebird, which eventually became MK Ultra, which eventually became Artichoke. All of it was the US intelligence community trying to figure out how the Chinese and Soviet communists were able to brainwash people and then develop their own methods for doing it. Stephen Kinzer describes the project as a kind of tragic comedy in which attempts to recreate what had been seen in horror movies and TV programs resulted in the CIA harming a lot of innocent people. Kinzer writes, two traumatic historical episodes: the testimony of Cardinal Mindszenty during his 1949 trial in Hungary, and the behavior of American prisoners in Korea several years later, convinced CIA. Two traumatic historical episodes: the testimony of Cardinal Mindszenty during his 1949 trial in Hungary, and the behavior of American prisoners in Korea several years later, convinced senior CIA officers that communists had discovered the key to mind control. The stories they imbibed as children and adults made those fears seem real. Lost in the blurry Lost in the blurry borderland. Lost in the blurry borderland between the fantasy and truth of mind control, they could not bring themselves to recognize the fantasy as the product of creative imagination. What the imagination could conceive, they believed the clandestine world could make real. MK Ultra was an attempt to invent a new reality. As John D. Marks described the program, the CIA built up its own elaborate brainwashing program, which, like the Chinese and Soviet versions, took its own special twist from our national character. It was a tiny replica of the Manhattan Project, grounded in the conviction that the keys to brainwashing lay in technology. The program involved a number of infamous episodes, such as Operation Midnight Climax, where the CIA set up a brothel and lured men with prostitutes to a location where they could be dosed with LSD and studied. The program also involved the agency studying the art of harassing individuals in order to induce a psychological breakdown. John D. Marks quotes one agency veteran describing how disgusted he was with the cruelty dished out to individuals in the hopes of learning how to manipulate their behavior. That's why I couldn't even take reading the files after a while. I was sickened at seeing people take pleasure in other people's inadequacies. First of all, it was dumb. For all the money that went out, nothing ever came back. First, you check to see if you could destroy a man's marriage. If you could, that would be enough to put a lot of stress on the individual, break him down. Then you might start a minor rumor and campaign against him, harass him constantly, bump his car in traffic. A lot of it is ridiculous, but it may have a cumulative effect. Marx quotes agency insiders telling how they would capture a few teenage members of a street gang, spend some time attempting to brainwash them, and then send them to rejoin their comrades and weaken the group from within. With gang warfare, says an MK Ultra source, you try to get some defectors in place who would like to modify some of the group. You try to get some defectors in place who would like to modify some of the group behavior and cool it. Now, getting a juvenile delinquent defective was motivationally not at all different from getting a Soviet one. At the same time that the US CIA was engaged in its mind control research, MI6 was utilizing British psychiatrist William Sargent across the pond. His ruthless sleep room experiments were revealed decades later to have resulted in at least a few deaths, as he kept people asleep for months at a time. He drugged His ruthless sleep room experiments were revealed decades later to have resulted in at least a few deaths, as he kept people asleep for months at a time, drugged as he tried to influence their minds in their sleep. William Sargent published a book called The Mind Possessed in 1973, describing what much of his research had discovered about mind control, suggestibility, and its somewhat contradictory nature. Sargent wrote, "It is not the mentally ill, but normal people who are the most susceptible to brainwashing, conversion, possession, the crisis, or whatever you wish to call it, and who in their hundreds of thousands of millions fall readily under the spell of the demagogue or revivalist, the witch doctor, the pop group, the priest or the psychiatrist, or even to a lesser degree, the propagandist or advertiser. At the root of this all too common human experience is a state of heightened suggestibility, of openness to suggestion and exhortations." He went on to write in the book's conclusion, "Suggestibility is, in fact, one essential characteristic of being normal. A normal person is responsive to other people around him, cares about what they think of him, and is readily open to their suggestion and influence. If the great majority of people were not normally suggestible, we could not live together in society at all. We could not collaborate in any undertaking. The originators of new ideas and the founders of new systems are rarely themselves normal people. If they were, they would drop their new notions comparatively quickly in the face of the hostility of their fellows. The schizophrenic and schizoid thinker is the most immune to all out. The schizophrenic and schizoid thinker is the most immune to all of the schizophrenic and schizoid thinker is the most immune of all to outside influences dominating his ideas. His ideas come most often from inside himself and may be the product of hallucinations, delusions, and other abnormal thought processes which he experiences and which he tries to explain on the basis of further delusional thinking. During the war, schizophrenics were rarely upset by bombing, for instance, being far too preoccupied with their own inner turmoils and worries. Sargent did conclude that if you wanted someone to have a dramatic political or religious conversion, it was necessary to put them under stress. Persons of hysterical temperament are also highly suggestible. Hysterical behavior is most commonly the result of normal people breaking down under severe stress. Hysterical behavior is most commonly the result of normal people breaking down under severe stresses, as was seen again and again during the war. Faith healing and spirit's possession rarely happen in a calm, rational atmosphere, as every witch doctor and faith healer knows all too well. Emotions must be aroused for success to be obtained. Beyond these observations on suggestibility, the CIA had roughly the same lack of real discoveries in its mind control research as MI6 did with Sargent, though John D. Marks quotes agency veterans describing results that clearly required some rather horrific methods. He wrote, "By the time MKUltra ended in 1963, agency researchers had found no foolproof way to brainwash another person. All experiments beyond a certain point always failed," says the MKUltra veteran, because the subject All experiments beyond a certain point always failed, says the MKUltra veteran, because the subject jerked himself back for some reason or the subject got amnesiac or catatonic. Agency officials found through work like Cameron's that they could create vegetables, but such people served no operational purpose. People could be tortured into saying anything, but no science could guarantee they would tell the truth. How many people were turned into vegetables by CIA operatives trying to discover the secrets of mind control? How many were tortured? The bulk of the program's records were destroyed before MKUltra became public in the late 1970s, so we will never know. I'm going to save that for now. Stop that for now. You know, I was in the middle of a workshop yesterday, late night workshop yesterday. So I really didn't get a chance to see, nor did I know of, that this uh, this idiot with dementia was going to have a speech. So just for my, I don't know why I'm doing it, but for my, I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm just gonna hold this up, see what. I'm just gonna pull this up right now, and yeah, hope this speech, see what he said. I probably shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Why the hell not? Probably would be idiotic, but let's see. All right. See if I can screen share. Let's see what this idiot had to say. Brace. Let me just brace myself for some torture. All right. Here we go.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster after the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world.
Wow. You're the hottest country in the world. Where the hell are you getting that at, sir? Where the hell are you getting that at?
America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week, it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America.
I never heard so many fucking lies in like one. Whew. Good grief, God.
And a 100% expensing for our job creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world.
Still do.
Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nations policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%.
That is a lie. That is a lie. Now you want to talk about Biden inflation? Bro, this war you started with Iran. Woo! Shit, this guy.
TrumpRx.gov. This will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with zero illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is zero. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide with the murder rate at its lowest level.
Is that including these ICE Gestapos? Is that including these ICE Gestapos? I'll wait.
since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's getting its ass kicked by Iran. You, no, this can roll on.
I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won
because of you.
In Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil.
You kidnapped their leader, their president, that's still sitting in a prison in Brooklyn. They're not. This guy is unreal. And by the way, those earthquakes, now you're going in. Now you're going in for intervention after the earthquakes that have killed thousands that happened simultaneously. This is craziness. Earthquakes, but he don't want to bring that up. Humanitarian aid that you are exporting what? 3.5 billion dollars of oil. Venezuela, that they're not getting that money back, but you want to send 150 million for humanitarian relief. Get the fuck out of here.
We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of
God damn, he's lying. God damn, he's lying. We're not winning at all in Iran. The strait is closed, and I think the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, I think it's closed now, or it's about to be closed, and you're getting your ass handed to. The bases are getting lit up like 4th of July. He's lying. Oh my God. This was yesterday, but he's still.
That labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years.
He's actually right about that. Ironic, but wrong messenger.
Years I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure. One where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes, and really exposes like levels never thought possible, to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference, just as...
Foreign interference from whom? Foreign interference from whom?
Disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you. The American people are beautiful, are great American people, but that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be
hold on.
the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information.
He's trying this. Yo, this is now China Gate. We went from Russia Gate, which was bullshit, to China Gate. Wow, he's really trying to drum up the engines of war with China. Wow. Wow.
Includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people.
Who told him to say that? Who told him to say that? Oh my God. Oh my God. He's literally lying through his teeth right now. This is madness. This is madness. This is madness. He's lying. Lying. China. Wow. It went from Russia Gate to China Gate in the deep state. Sir, I think you're part of that deep state now.
Like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they just.
You sure it's not it's this country name Israel that's doing all this? This, my bad. Sorry.
Discovered that tens of millions of voter data. Think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his reelection. Isn't that nice?
It's not even
Also,
trying to
in
hit with this one.
mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself.
I thought it was Russia that was doing it. Whoa, that was China at that time? What? Yo.
Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against.
Isn't the CIA the deep state? So you said the deep state, yeah, the deep state will clean them out, and then you mentioned the CIA, trusting the CIA.
Against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because.
You know what's ironic about him saying all this? He was just in China at awe of Xi Jinping. Bro. Wow.
They knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world.
The strongest military that's getting its ass whooped by Iran. And you plan on going to war against China? Have fun.
These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known.
That shadow intelligence, shadow government, shadow intelligence, Mossad?
And to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden,
thought you were against the deep state. I thought you were against the deep state. I think every single person, every single entity he has, CIA, FBI, isn't that deep state?
To fire those involved in the cover-up and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems, dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the...
Listen, election integrity is important, and what he's saying is truest. Election integrity is important, but he's lying because he keeps saying China, trying to drum up the engines of war. But what country really is rigging and having foreign influence in our elections? Is real.
United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop, to digital...
Now, I know there are videos out there showing that the how elections are done in Venezuela, and I didn't see any outs. I saw a lot more transparency. And this is coming from a guy who, again, kidnapped the president. And all of a sudden, you are pillaging all their oil. And you're saying it's a great relationship. Okay.
Alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was.
You know, with all what he's saying, show us then. Show us if this is. Show us if this is true or not. Most of it's lying, but you know what? Hey, let's play this game. Show us this proof.
Is pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review, state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states reviewed.
What country are they from? No, he said Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Notice how he never said one other country. Venezuela. Notice how he never said one other country. Or fake state.
To share their voter files. The real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have.
It's not lying. Venezuela seemed more transparent, but you know, he's not lying. I wonder why that is, though.
In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean
He's not lying, but you haven't mentioned one other country that could have been possibly, let me say, fake state that we know had foreign influence in our elections, but whatever.
A revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world.
We agree. Actually agree about that.
Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody. And it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the people's.
You know, we are now going to have 6 years and counting. I don't even know if this guy's going to make it, of demented, senile presidents. This guy is slurring his words left and right almost. Yo. Damn.
Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that?
Yo, he wants surveillance. He wants surveillance. This is pure surveillance. Yo, this guy, he wants surveillance. He drummed up all these lies, and now he wants surveillance. This is fascism. We're already in fascism and moving deeper into Yeah. He wants surveillance. You gotta show photo ID. Okay.
Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together, we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Good grief, God. Good grief, God. Wow. Save America. He that that act is only gonna ramp up the surveillance state. Show photo ID. Are you a citizen? Okay. 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 Mm-mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Mm. That was another. It was another crazy one. That wasn't even. Yeah, that's full. Like again, that was just an infomercial, a legit infomercial. And sir, if you have that proof, show us. Otherwise, you notice how he never once mentioned Israel one time in terms of foreign influence in elections. He basically went from Russiagate to Chinagate. Russiagate to Chinagate. That is wild. That is wild. Wow. 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 Oh, this was Stephen Miller. What did he say now? Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. What did he say now? Oh boy. All right. Let's see what he says now, Stephen Miller.
Leading this initiative. Here in the United States, we have taken the necessary and essential action of formally recognizing left-wing violence as a form of political terrorism that is a direct threat to our national security.
Historically, every single form of political violence, whatever, has never really been from the left. It's been from the right. Yeah, okay, let's keep going.
And the survival of our Republican form of government. President Trump issued a directive in our parlance. It's called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, or NSPM, NSPM 7 to be exact, that directs for the first time in American history all of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to work together to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest, and prosecute these political terrorists that are operating in our country. It's very important to understand that left-wing political terrorism seeks as its ultimate end the overthrow of our system and form of government. And we've seen this has taken place many times.
Isn't that what you're doing right now? What he's basically saying is if you criticize us in a certain state, it's all over. We could come after you. We'll debank you. We'll come after you. This is wild. This is surveillance.
In many places throughout the years, and Secretary Rubio has provided you many examples. Left-wing terrorism always ends in bloodshed, misery, and suffering. It only can travel.
Show us where. Show us where. When it comes to left-wing terrorism.
In one direction. There's no point at which the left-wing terrorist is satisfied with his gains and ceases progressing. Inevitably, left to run its course, it always becomes a gulag. It always becomes the mass imprisonment of political enemies, the stripping of...
That's what you guys are. Everything he's saying is what he's doing right now. Oh my God.
Their rights and freedoms, inflicting immense pain, humiliation, suffering, in order to establish complete and total control. Control through psychological and physical and actual terror. And we have to...
The whole duopoly is right wing. Well, everything he's describing is what this administration and the whole duopoly, for that whole matter, is doing right now. They're picking up where Biden and Kamala left off, and he's only advancing it like this. This is wow.
Understand that that is the scope and the extent of the threat that we face. And as Secretary Rubio also pointed out, this is an international network. Antifa, as an example, operates in dozens of countries all throughout the world. They share common networks of funding, organization, and information sharing. And so all of our intelligence agencies and law enforcement entities should be collaborating and coordinating and working together in order to root out these organizations. One of the hallmarks of left-wing violence and terrorism is its completely pretextual and disingenuous appeal to civil liberties in an effort to shield its own violence. This is the tactic that the left always uses to try to protect itself from facing criminal punishment. It is essential that we are wise enough and strong enough to understand that these appeals must fall on deaf ears. When the leftist, who does not believe in freedom, who does not believe in civil rights, who does not believe in any ordered notion of justice, protests that we are violating his rights, understand that he is lying to try to persuade people who are not closely following the political scene that some injustice has been perpetrated against him.
This guy is everything he's just said about left-wing terrorists. What do you think ICE is doing, bro? This guy is everything he's talking about the left-wing terrorists. That's actually what he and the whole entire, not just necessarily the Trump administration, it's been the Biden administration too, have been doing. This guy is wild. He is wild. Yo.
We must stay the course and be completely unflinching in the pursuit of justice against these enemies of civilization. If the left is allowed to use the real or actual threat of violence to destabilize our institutions, then those institutions...
ICE? ICE? Sir. Wow. Surveillance ICE, yeah, liars are gonna lie. He is lying. Oh my God.
Cannot and will not succeed. So here in the United States, for example, we saw in the recent past clear threats of violence against our Supreme Court to try to shape how they rule on upcoming decisions. The leftist does this with the full desire, intent, and understanding that the threat of violence against a public figure or their family is meant to cow them into behaving or acting or conducting themselves differently.
What the heck?
You had the combination of a violent left wing is meant to cow them into behaving or acting or conducting themselves differently.
Right? Did he say something else crazy?
Those are the conditions in which this kind of violence can fester as a cancer and ultimately destroy a society. Nothing that we do works if the threat of violence and terror goes on unchecked. Our political systems don't work, our judicial systems don't work, our legal systems don't work, our jury trials don't work. And at the same time, we have to understand there's a real threat that those who are not themselves terrorists, but who support left-wing violence, will create the conditions that allow that violence to go on without any meaningful inhibition. So, to be specific,
again, ICE and surveillance at this is what he's all doing. And the PayPal mafia is all doing. Oh God.
we've seen some of our nation's cities in America, like Washington, D.C. and New York City, something, again, it's an American term, but it's known as jury nullification. This is when a person is obviously guilty of a crime, but the juror, because they're ideologically sympathetic to the perpetrator, will not sentence them to the crime for which they've obviously committed. We've seen in the United States, again and again, individuals who are part of left-wing organizations who've committed assaults against ICE officers or federal law enforcement who've been brought to court where clear evidence has been presented against them, that the jury has refused to convict for purely political reasons. When you've reached that point,
Sir, it's actually been the ICE officers who've been killing people and assaulting people. Like, imagine you got, like, mass vigilantes calling themselves the law, killing people, calling those people who protest them domestic terrorists. Like, you're crazy.
demonstrates how deeply the cancer has begun to infest your society, where people have created an internal rationalization structure to justify unsanctioned violence against the state and state actors to achieve a political end. We have to use every lawful and legitimate tool that we have to demonstrate that justice will be served and delivered, and to prove that these kinds of tactics and techniques will ultimately fail. If the leftist learns and observes that their violence and criminal activity helps and ultimately succeeds in achieving their desired political end, they will be endlessly emboldened. Here in the United States, we've seen a growing and deeply alarming increase in attempted assassinations against public figures. Most notably, of course, the multiple assassination attempts against President Trump, the successful assassination attempt against Charlie Kirk, many others.
So, since you mentioned Charlie Kirk, was that a leftist? Because right now that trial ain't looking so good, if you're trying to prove that point. Right, yes. ICE perpetrates, they be perpetrators of all this, but Charlie Kirk. Huh. I wonder who trains ICE. Because you're going to talk about leftist and left extremism.
Others. This is a fatal cancer to civilization. And the greatest risk that we have is that our institutions have grown too soft and too cowardly to be able to defend themselves against a mortal threat. If your civilization is your home, you must defend it with the same passion and force as if an enemy intruder is inside your own house where your family lives. That is the level of dedication and urgency that is required. And the greatest threat is that even though there are far more of us, there are far more people who believe in order and civilization and liberty and the rule of law.
Do you? Do you? You believe in authoritarianism and fascism? If that's what you mean by law and order.
Is that if we are softer than those who seek to end us, then the smaller but more radical minority will succeed. It is easy to dismiss what I'm saying and to say, surely it cannot be that bad, it cannot be that dire. But again, I point to the examples in our own country where, for example, our Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which has been duly statutory authorized to carry out routine enforcements of immigration law, has been subjected to an over 8,000% increase in violent assaults.
Oh my God.
It's not one-off episodes. This is repeat, systemic, organized, funded insurrection and armed resistance against the federal government.
Really? Really? That's what you're going to go with? Systemic funded insurrection. So the killings that have happened of Renee Good, Alex Peretti, and the one that just recently happened, I know there's like at least a solid 10. That was all by leftists when they went up against ICE. Who perpetrated that?
There was a sniper from a sniper's nest who, using an assault rifle, tried to shoot ICE officers in Dallas, Texas. These are the episodes that we're talking about, where we have had repeated, direct, violent attacks on federal law enforcement in order to veto the ballot box with violence. And the leftist justifies this violence to himself by saying that they alone are the arbiters of what is right or wrong, not the law.
Sir, everything you're describing about these left extremist terrorists is what you guys are doing.
Not history, not civilization, not public opinion, certainly not God. The leftist assumes for himself judge, jury, executioner. But let's not pretend for a moment that these radical leftists, these terrorists, are operating from a place of sincere political conviction. Sure, there are plenty of useful idiots that they use who may believe these discredited ideologies. The leftist is fundamentally motivated by envy, by hatred, by jealousy. The leftist looks at what is beautiful and what is good and what is natural and is filled with envy and hatred. The leftist looks at a perfect family with the perfect life and a perfect job and perfect kids that goes to church every Sunday and is filled with a feeling of inadequacy and jealousy, and they covet, and they turn those emotions ultimately into a desire to subjugate, to oppress, and to inflict pain and suffering. It's not a coincidence that when you look at these violent Antifa demonstrations,
Bro, how? Oh my God. I people get fixated on what Trump says and lies. It's not what he says, it's what these mofos, Stephen Miller and people like him behind the scenes are doing and saying. Oh my God. He's basically saying if you are a dissenter, you are a terrorist. He's trying to nullify all forms of dissent, period. This is what he's basically saying. Oh my God. If you criticize Israel or this Zionist regime, that's what he's basically trying to do, put it into place. This is craziness. Everything that the leftists are doing, that's actually what ICE, Stephen Miller, and this whole administration duopoly are putting in place, a surveillance state and police state. That's what they're doing. This is craziness. He's basically putting it so that you cannot object at all. You cannot object, have no form of dissent. They're putting in, they're accelerating fascism, literally.
You see any photograph of those who were assembled. To be blunt, not one of the people that is demonstrating looks like a normal person. Not one looks normal. They're all deformed in some way, in their appearance, in their dress, in their mannerism. Why is that? Why? If you look at two photographs and you see a normal American street, you see an Antifa protest. Why do the people that are violently demonstrating, why is there not one normal-looking person among them? Every one of them, through the course of their life and their decisions, has scarred their body and their appearance in many different ways, to the point in which their outer appearance becomes a manifestation of their inner hatred.
Wow.
Trust your instincts. To all people and across all civilizations, you know what normal is. You know what beautiful is. You know what good is. You know that families are right. You know that children are precious and beautiful and must be protected. You know that
going into people's homes saying you had some social media posts about criticizing other people in other states. That's also good too. That running over people who are that allowing a mass vigilante who's an actor of the state supposedly is good. That these guys who are crazy don't know what they're doing, employing them and giving them protection is also good. That this guy right here telling you the supposed truth is good. Wow.
Criminal and the junkie and the predator is a threat to normal, healthy living. This is so much deeper than issues about taxation and regulation, although they're incredibly important. It's about normal, healthy, ordered living. And the violent leftists, for these deep-seated reasons, going back to the earliest wisdom taught to us in the Bible about coveting. And I'm not talking about rich versus poor. I'm talking about a much deeper kind of coveting. Coveting people who are morally superior, who are superior in the simple, truthful way they live their lives. People that they look at who are happy and ordered and peaceful and contributing to their communities. That burns an ember in them, and that's how you end up with the horrors we've seen throughout history, where good families are dragged out into the street and executed. And you might...
By who? I like how he says the left extremists, not ICE, not the police trained by the IDF, both the ICE and police trained by the IDF. Oh no, it's these left extremists. Good. Wow. Not these police coming into your home saying, we need to interrogate you because you had a post.
Say, again, you're describing a future that seems impossible to conceive of. When it comes to preventing these horrors, it is the burden and the duty of good people of all walks of life to understand that you will always be accused of raising the alarm too loudly. If you wait until the point where the worst outcome is so obvious that no one can deny it, you've already lost the battle. That's the fundamental point. If you say, I will not raise this alarm until the threat is so present and so clear and so obvious and so imminent that none can deny it, it's already too late. It's already too late. I would rather prevent a threat.
Yo, if Pinocchio were ever real, I bet you this guy's nose will literally break my screen, grow so large it will break my screen, come through the screen, and damn near it would just like kill me by just going like I am. Oh, whew. Talk about this guy wants to call anybody literally that disagrees with the duopoly and Israel effectively a terrorist. A terrorist. That's what he's basically saying. That's what they're basically implementing.
From occurring and be accused for the rest of my life of having falsely raised the alarm, knowing in myself that I was right, than for fear of being judged, having waited too long until the point of no return has been crossed. The good news is that we are far away from the point of no return. So all of us should organize together and work together for the good and the benefit of all the people in our societies, of all walks of life, of all persuasions, to deliver for them what they are justly entitled to, which is to live with safety, with fundamental human dignity, and with the ability to live in peace and harmony with their families and neighbors. Thank you all, and God bless.
This guy just literally lied. This guy just lied his ass off. He lied his whole ass off. He lied his whole entire ass off. Left extremism. Bro, everything he described is what they're doing now. It's what this administration is doing right now. Actually, the whole duopoly is all for it. He said certified state actors. Bro, if you gotta wear a face mask, bandanas, come up with guns, and then your first thing is to roll up to anybody, no warrant, no search warrants, no nothing, and take them out of their cars, go in their houses, and then you're literally scanning their license plate and say you are now a domestic terrorist. He's saying that's all leftists. Nah, bro. Nah. Historically, every ounce of political terrorism really has come from the right. Extreme terrorism of this sort domestically has been far right terrorism. And the Antifa, they're all actors too from three-letter alphabet soup agencies. This guy is a whack job. He's fucking wilding and lying to crack down on anybody who literally shows any sort of dissent to this regime, to the Epstein regime, basically. He is wilding. He is out of his mind. Out of his mind. Out of his mind. Oh my God. Mm. Mm. You know what? I'm on that type of time. I'm on that type of time. Mhm. Yeah, that type of time. Actually, I got a better one. Um, so I didn't get a chance to. I only saw clips of this one, but this is when Ro Khanna was on Dropside News and Jeremy Scahill took him to task. And good for Jeremy Scahill to do what he did. I will give Ro Khanna credit for doing what he's doing, but he can't. You'll see.
Specifically, but if you look at all the things I've called for, I've said zero aid to Israel and supporting the Massey Amendment that does that. That's going to be a big vote coming up this week. I've said no military sales to Israel that are used to kill civilians. I've said no military integration and led the fight to repeal Section 224 and 219, which is Netanyahu's end run, where they would just co-produce the military. I've said we should call it apartheid and recognize the genocide. So
Agreed.
these are on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like going from 1 to 7 or 8. And the debate is, okay, 9 or 10. Do I, an arms embargo completely, which I have not supported, would say Israel can't even get or produce from anyone defensive, the Iron Dome. And I guess my view is, anyone should be able to protect civilian life, but that's not America supporting it. I do think, though, that there is something that the next administration could do within the first 100 days. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to talk abstractly about this long peace process, demand the arrest of Yonah Levy and extremist settlers within 100 days. Demand the destruction of every outpost within 100 days. Demand the destruction of illegal settlements within 100 days. Demand a justice for Palestinians and Palestinian people so that they stop getting terrorized within 100 days. That doesn't have to be some dialogue. That needs to be a directive from the American administration saying Israel must do this. And we need to be taking steps as we get towards a broader peace in that direction. I think that's one of the things that came out of this trip, the immediacy of the suffering of Palestinians.
I still don't think this is answering the question. I mean, tell me where I'm wrong here. What you're advocating for, we are talking about not just Netanyahu. Sanders always says Netanyahu and his extremist right-wing government. But if you look at public opinion polling, there is widespread support for open genocidal policies.
Yes,
in fact, Netanyahu is often criticized by his political opponents for not having finished the job in Gaza or in Lebanon or elsewhere. And I want to know why it is that you are stopping on this, because so much of what you're saying, it's one of the clearest recognitions of the issue that you could hear from an American politician, and yet you still are saying, but the sniper needs to have protection.
It's not the sniper. It's saying that we're not, just so there's no ambiguity on my position, which is also the position of Sanders or AOC or others, as I understand it. It is that we have zero military aid to Israel, that we have no.
Now, to be clear, that doesn't include if Israel can still buy weapons. So let's not try to get slick on that either.
military sales that are used to kill military weapons that are used to be killing civilians. So that's the drop.
I would argue
no
Iron
drop.
Dome is used to kill. I would argue Iron Dome is used to kill civilians because it allows the Israelis to have this American backing to operate with impunity by openly saying that I support this military technology for Israel. What you're saying is that when Israel attacks other countries who have a right to fight back, that my position is that that sniper, I wish he wasn't doing the sniping, but that sniper has a right to have United States defending their sniping.
But I don't think that that's the case if we're stopping all military aid and we're stopping giving them the weapons to kill others, and we're stopping protecting them at the UN, and we're demanding the actions in terms of justice. I don't think that their policies, whether it's Netanyahu or another Israeli government.
Would you say this about apartheid South Africa? I've heard you talk
about.
Well,
because I think
give me another example where you say it's okay to continue any level of support for an openly genocidal society that has mass murdered 80,000 people, more than 300 media workers, has invaded Lebanon, has bombed Iran, and you're saying, oh, but we need to protect civilians. This isn't about protecting civilians. The greatest threat to their civilians is their policy. And so I don't understand why you have even one qualified shred of support for a sniper mass murderer masquerading as the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, but I'm not saying that the United States should be supporting the funding for Iron Dome, just so we're clear. I'm saying that we shouldn't be restricting Israel from being able to get the Iron Dome or be able to develop the Iron Dome technology. Well,
I stop there. Everything else you're saying makes so much sense. Why do you stop there? It feels to me like you're trying to have it both ways on this issue. So you can say, well, I actually support defending the Israeli civilians. You're not defending Israeli civilians with that policy. You're defending the sniper's ability to keep killing because it won't face the ultimate accountability, which is a total embargo on all support for an apartheid state.
Yeah, I don't think you have to put at risk. You would agree, there are innocent civilians in Israel, right? Including 20% being Arab Israelis. I mean, I just don't think that you have to put their lives at risk to achieve the ends of stopping the apartheid, stopping the occupation.
Israel puts their lives at risk by waging genocidal wars with the support of a significant portion of its population, and by enabling them by saying, well, the sniper still needs to have his cover, or well, I stop at this thing. What you're saying is that the accountability then doesn't lie on American policy toward Israel. It's sort of something abstract. Well, Israeli civilians could die. Israeli civilians are dying in these attacks because of the apartheid. Palestinians have a right to kill Israeli soldiers, Congressman? On October 7th, when they attacked the military bases in the Gaza envelope, did the Qassam brigades and Surah al-Quds have a right to kill Israeli soldiers? Yes or no? On October 7th, did Palestinians have a right to attack Israeli military bases in the Gaza envelope? Yes or no?
Get them.
I mean, I think October 7th attack was a terrorist attack, so I don't justify.
Was it a terrorist attack when the first targets that were hit on the morning of October 7th were multiple military bases? Did Palestinian forces have a right to attack those military bases?
Get them.
I am not for violence again in any way. I mean, I am for making sure that we end the occupation. Do
they have a right to do it, Congressman? Do they have a right to attack Israeli soldiers?
No, I'm not going to say that Hamas had a right to attack Israeli soldiers or kill Israelis. Like I don't.
This is craziness from Ro Khanna, because you can't be like, oh, arms embargo, and then you refuse to answer a question when it's an occupied state. They have the right to defend themselves. Scott,
I don't think that advances peace or advances Palestinian statehood.
Does Israel have a right to drop a single bomb on Gaza in response to October 7th?
I believe Israel had the right to get people who killed the civilians, but not in the way they went about it, which I've said is genocide.
But the Palestinians don't have a right to attack the very military bases that are running the killing operations on October 6th, 2023, or October 5th, 2023. It's a double standard. You're saying there are ways that Israel should be able to kill Palestinians, but there is never a condition under which Palestinians can attack armed, uniformed soldiers of a force that is still considered an occupying force under international law. I don't make it make sense to me how those
I
two
come
things
from
are
a
not
tradition
total
of
hypocrisy.
King and Gandhi. My grandfather was in jail for.
I'm aware of your family history. Do you think King would say, "Well, there's certain they can attack the Viet Cong, but I don't want them to kill"?
I don't think anyone. I don't know what Gandhi would say. I don't think my grandfather would say that the Palestinians should have armed resistance to Israeli occupation. I think they would argue for a much more nonviolent approach. But America, I think, in ending aid, in ending military sales, in not being a defender of Israel in the UN, just vetoing resolutions against Israel, would make tremendous progress. I mean, maybe we're on a scale of 1 to 10, and you think you're at a 10, and I'm saying let's go to a 6, 7, 8. I don't know where that would be. And right now, America's at a 1.
No, we're at a 10 because of a genocide that was enabled, supported, armed, and funded by the United States. And I am baffled as to how you can say that Israel had a right to drop a single bomb on Gaza in response to October 7th, but Palestinians, according to you, have no right whatsoever to ever kill an Israeli occupation.
Palestinians have right to justice, which is in the case of
do they have a right to armed resistance against Israeli occupation soldiers in uniform? Do they ever have a right to kill an Israeli soldier?
I think if it's a self-defense, if they feel like there's an illegal attack on them by a violent settler or by an Israeli soldier, and that's illegal, in a school or on a civilian, and then of course they should have justice.
But the entire thing is illegal, Representative Khanna. The entire occupation of Gaza, the managing their diet, the mowing the lawn, the constant killing of them. The perspective of many Palestinians is that they're being collectively punished and they're fighting for their very existence, and that the bases that surround Gaza were the primary murderers on a military level of the population of Gaza. So what I'm understanding, whether it's Hamas and Islamic Jihad or it's independent Palestinians, how is it that you can stand here and in any way justify the Israelis dropping bombs on Gaza, but never find a way in which it's justifiable for Palestinians to kill an armed?
Yeah, Ro Khanna's trying to have it for both ways, and especially if you are a presidential hopeful, Ro Khanna. And again, I give you props with you and Massey for trying to cut the funding for Israel, the $3.3 billion for Israel, trying to cut it, and the Epstein files transparency. But on this, boy, you are failing, because you're trying to have it both ways, and especially if you are a president candidate hopeful, this is going to come back to haunt you. It's going to come back to haunt you.
Soldier of a force that is under international law an occupation force. I don't understand it.
Well,
I ask you to reconsider this position.
Well, I will look at it, but I don't think that the solution in that area is to encourage. But
you're afraid of being called pro-Hamas. That's what this boils down to.
Yeah.
Because I bet if we were talking off the record privately, and I said this to you, you would acknowledge that people around the world have a right to resistance by all means necessary.
I've always been for peaceful resistance.
But how is peaceful resistance saying the Israelis?
Just like it's under segregation. I wouldn't have said that go kill people who are engaged in segregation against you. I mean, I'm much more Dr. King than Malcolm X. I mean,
are you much more slave rebellions were justified against people that were raping, hanging, murdering Africans who had been kidnapped? I mean, I'm sorry. I spend most of my day and night talking with Palestinians, working with Palestinians. My colleague Hossam Shabat was assassinated by the Israelis, and you're saying they have no right ever to use force.
Most of the Palestinians I met.
Yo, Jeremy Scahill, cooking Ro Khanna, cooking Ro Khanna, cooking Ro Khanna. Yo, he's really trying to have it both ways. This is craziness. This is madness right now. This is madness.
Maybe a few days, are not talking about the kind of armed resistance that you are. They just want to live their lives in dignity and peace and not have the Israeli settlers oppress them.
but you're a member of the United States Congress who is justifying, albeit you've been very critical of Israel's war against Gaza, but you seem to be drawing a line that says that there are some cases in which Israel is justified to attack Palestinians, but only those responsible for October 7th. But you can't find a shred of justification for any Palestinian to attack the very armed forces operating under a nation-state flag that is backed by the United States. And you're saying that there is no condition under which a Palestinian has a right to kill soldiers who are posted at military bases, enforcing by murder and forced starvation and deprivation an illegal occupation of Gaza. That's what doesn't make sense to me. I don't see how you reconcile those two positions.
Because I think that the armed resistance is only going to be ineffective given the power differentials. It's similar to what Gandhi.
Bro, the armed resistance is because they have to. It's not that they don't want to, it's because they have to. And you have the right to defend yourself from an occupation.
He thought in terms of how he took on the British Empire.
An illegal occupation by that. This is wild.
And that having a moral force of civil resistance and appealing to the world's conscience is going to be much better chance of getting dignity and peace.
2019, the Palestinians organized the Great March of Return, which was a mass nonviolent mobilization at the gates of the concentration camp walls and fence in Gaza. And you know what Israeli soldiers did, Representative Khanna? They had a competition to who could shoot the most kneecaps of Palestinians.
Well, I think that
were backed by Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas. So there's a track record and there's a context. You're talking about tactical issues. The Palestinians have tried that. The Palestinians did.
Well, I think I think opinion is
down.
I think opinion is shifting now in America, where those kind of approaches would get a better reception in the United States.
They tried.
Masa, what do you think?
We talked a bit about this because I remember that you asked something along the lines of if Hamas was, the governing, if there was a state and Hamas was, the governing body, would we be okay with that? And I responded and said, Hamas has been very, very vocal. It's been from the beginning, Hamas would not exist if there wasn't an occupation. The second the occupation ceases to exist is the second that the need to resist ceases to exist, right?
Thank you.
So I see what you're saying, but I agree with Jeremy in the sense that there's a double standard to what you are saying. And you've seen yourself now that you've been to the West Bank. A lot of these parents that are talking about their kids being murdered can't even go to where their son was murdered without a bulletproof vest on. It is a violent place. Whether or not we could talk about peace, but the violence is there, and the only way a lot of times is to defend yourself. It's with violence, which is something that is stripped of the Palestinian citizen. I could be in my house and I could have 50 settlers. I talked to an American citizen in Deir Dawan. 50 settlers came to her house, and the Israeli police said, "Why don't you defend yourself?" And she said, I would be the one that gets shot if I defended myself. So there are a lot of cases where, as much as we want to be, romantic about the situation, we have the Second Amendment here in the States, where, a lot of people would say this is the safest place in the world. Sometimes their only way to defend yourself is with, armed resistance. So I don't know. We talked about this, and I do appreciate that you were listening to people, because you had these conversations on the ground, but I do still think that there's some room there to understand that this isn't just armed resistance doesn't exist just because these are violent people. It's the final. We've tried the UN. We've tried the Oslo Accords. We've tried everything. In the end, this is what needs to happen,
Exactly. That's what
Yeah, I just think the question is whether shifted in American foreign policy can open the doors towards ending the occupation and pursuing justice. But you know, I'll leave my position there.
I mean, one way I think about it is, if you're not going to acknowledge the right of, armed resistance, the playing field has to be leveled somehow. Like if we're not talking about an arms embargo, you have a state that is relentlessly violent toward a captive population. What would it take? And
it's just, yeah, Ro Khanna's trying to have it both ways, and it ain't working. He's trying to have it both ways, and it ain't working. Like, you cannot. I'm not against violent resistance. They have to do it. Ro Khanna, if you are under occupation, you have the right to resist. You have the right to armed resistance. You can't have it both ways. You just can't have it both ways. And this is going to come back to Ro Khanna in a bad way. He's been very vocal, true, but this one's going to come back to him. Sounded like a damn politician. Sounded like the establishment through and through, because he will not cross that threshold. All right. I'm gonna call that. I don't know how people do these long streams, but I'm gonna call it for now. If you were in the chat, thank you for watching what I was doing and whatnot.